So NBC News recently published a pretty depressing article, to say the least. It's on the climate crisis that we're currently enduring. This isn't something that we need to look forward to in the future anymore. We're actually living amongst it. The title of the article is Triple Jeopardy: Children Face Dark Future of Climate Disasters. So the article starts off: a child born in 2021 will live on average through 7 times as many heat waves, twice as many wildfires, and nearly 3 times as many droughts, crop failures, and river floods as their grandparents, according to a study released Sunday that looked at how different generations will be affected by climate change. The results published in the journal Science found that global warming will disproportionately affect the lives of young people and children, particularly when it comes to extreme events worsened by climate change. The research is the first to extensively model extreme events in future climate scenarios and to apply the projections across demographic groups to quantify how people in different age groups around the world will experience climate disasters across their lifetimes. The outlook is troubling if the pace of global warming continues unchecked, said Wim Theory, a climate scientist at Brussels in Belgium. I don't know how to say those other two words, so I skipped them over. Who led the research. We found that everyone under 40 today, my God, I'm included, will live an unprecedented life in terms of their lifetime exposure to heat waves, droughts, and floods, Theory said. This is true even under the most conservative scenarios. Wow. The study shows intergenerational inequities across the board, but the researchers said climate change will affect children in developing countries even more acutely. The burden will remain disproportionate even with cuts in greenhouse gas emissions that countries have pledged under the Paris Agreement, a global climate pact signed by more than 190 countries. What is currently pledged, 172 with what is currently pledged, 172 million children in sub-Saharan Africa could live through 50 times more heat waves and a six-fold increase in extreme weather and extreme events over their lifetimes compared to 53 million in the same age group in Europe and Central Asia, researchers said. He added that the researchers also considered extreme events in isolation, which means the study didn't cover how the impact of such disasters could be amplified if they coincide. There's a tendency for things to occur at the same time, Theory said. Think about heat waves and droughts over river flooding and tropical cyclones. But Theory said there is reason for hope. If countries can make aggressive cuts in their greenhouse gas emissions and limit the effects of global warming, some of the study's most dire scenarios can be avoided, he said. Young people have been at the forefront of climate activism in movements like the Fridays for Future protests demanding action from governments. The discussion will be particularly important in the coming weeks as world leaders are now scheduled to convene for October 31st to November the 12th in Glasgow, Scotland for the 2021 UN Climate Change Conference, where countries are expected to set forth ambitious targets to reduce emissions by 2030. Now, that was a bit of a mouthful, but it all had to be said. This is frightening. This is very frightening. And you know what the response is from our government and many others to these sorts of facts and statistics from these climate scientists? It's the following. That's the response from our government officials. I mean, at least the Republicans. I mean, that's their response. Even the Democrats. Not all of them, because some of the Democrats actually give a fuck. But, I mean, people like Joe Manchin, for instance, he's taking so much money from fossil fuel industries, and he's actually getting rich off of mines that he owns, and he's, padding his pockets with dough. And so this climate change legislation he opposes because it would actually interfere with his money, with his bottom line. I mean, absolutely ridiculous. And that article points out how young people are at the forefront of these climate change movements. Yeah, because we're the ones that are going to actually have to live through the bullshit when it happens. So, of course, we want to stop it. But also because who would want future generations to live in a world that's uninhabitable? I wouldn't. I wouldn't want my kids or grandkids to live through that. But the business class, the owner class, the people that have the most money and power and influence in this country, don't seem to care. None of these facts seem to bother them, no matter how harrowing and grim of a future they paint. They're never shaken by it. But this is just the latest, man. As I said before, it paints a very bleak future for not just this country, but for the planet. Hopefully, change will occur, and hopefully, it'll occur quickly. Because if it doesn't, we are looking at a kind of catastrophe that could literally upend life for everyone in the future.